executed with spirit, and that they were at a loss for its not being followed up, unless it was for want of ammunition, wrote the author. At the end of the basic battle summary, Gordon succinctly concluded, General Washington is of opinion that the Americans retreated at an instant when victory was declaring in their favor. The Royal Army was indeed completely surprised, and appearances in the beginning were evidently on the side of the former. More than 40 years would elapse before another book offered anything significant on Germantown. Most writers focused on the morning fog and the fight at Cliveden. The principal causes of the failure of this well-concerted enterprise, wrote Charles Botta in his 1845 History of the Revolution, were the extreme haziness of the weather, which was so thick that the Americans could neither discover the situation nor movements of the British army, nor yet those of their own, and finally the unexpected resistance of Musgrave, who found means in a critical moment to transform a mere house into an impregnable fortress. That same year Jacob Neff published a history of armed forces in North America and regurgitated Botta's summary word for word. 2 years later, in 1847, George Lippard poetically described the fighting at Cliveden by assigning a part in the action to Washington himself that never occurred. "Follow me who will," he cried, and in a moment his steed of iron gray was careering over the sod, littered with ghastly corpses, while the air overhead was alive with the music of bullets and earth beneath was flung against the war steed's flanks by the cannonball. At every step a dead man with a livid face turned upward, little pools of blood crimsoning the lawn, torn fragments of attire scattered over the sod, on every side hurrying bodies of the foemen, while terrible and unremitting, the fire flashing from the windows of Chew's house flung a lurid glare over the battlefield. Washington dashed over the lawn. He approached the house, and every man of his train held his breath. Bullets were whistling over their heads, cannonballs playing round their horses' feet, yet their leader kept on his way of terror. A single glance at the house, with its volleys of flame flashing from every window, and he turned to the north to regain the American lines. But the fog and smoke gathered round him, and he found his horse entangled amid the enclosures of the cattle pen to the north of the mansion. Lippard continued his exaggerated account of Washington. "Leap your horses," cried Washington to the brave men around him. "Leap your horses and save yourselves." And in a moment, amid the mist and gloom, his officers leaped the northern enclosure of the cattle pen and rode forward to the American line, scarcely able to discover their path in the dense gloom that gathered around them. They reached the American lines and, to their horror, discovered that Washington was not among their band. He had not leaped the fence of the cattle pen. With the feeling of a true warrior, he was afraid of injuring his gallant steed by this leap in the dark. He rose proudly in the stirrups. He placed his hand gently on the neck of his steed. He glanced proudly round him, and then the noble horse sprang forward with a sudden leap, and the mist rising for a moment disclosed the form of Washington to the vision of the opposing armies. In the 1850s, as the country tore itself apart over the issue of slavery, Republicans and Democrats conjured up revolutionary heroes to support their cause. In October 1856, members of the recently formed Republican Party held a grand gathering on the ground where the Revolutionary Battle of Germantown was fought, and invoked a time hallowed in our country's history when patriots poured out their blood in a struggle for freedom. As these Republicans urged their followers to fight for freedom again, they hoped the grounds of Germantown will ring with the cries of freedom for bleeding Kansas. In 1858, Lord Mahon praised the effort of the Continentals in his History of England. Yet, defeat though it was, this battle brought no discredit, but the contrary to the American troops and the American commander. It showed that neither their spirit nor their strength had been broken by the reverses they had sustained. It proved them to want only that discipline and self-confidence which longer warfare was certain to produce. During the Civil War, the country looked toward revolutionary